Alright, I'm going to make a bowl. We're going to show you how I'm making it. First off, we're going to start with these. These are the molds that I'm using. These are from fruit we buy at the grocery store. Cut fruit, fresh fruit. We've got quite a few of them, so we're going to look for something to do with them. But I could buy molds, I could buy other bowls, but these things work really well. They separate well from the resin. Next, I've got a bunch of Elk Antler, old, weathered, sun-dried, cracked, beat up Elk Antler. Got them all cut up in pieces, and I've taken and arranged them around the bottom and around the sides. Of course, there's going to be a few spaces that where you want to see your epoxy anyway, your resin. And I am going to put a block of wood in the middle of it to save me some resin, save me some antlers. And I'm going to try to fill in around them with a few of these smaller pieces of antler. Again, these are some chunks that I'm not going to use or don't have any use for. So normally I would also use some cut up pieces of scrap wood to put in here. Anything other than the epoxy and the antler saves me a little money, saves me a little space, a little time. Okay, as you've seen, this is Alumilite resin, clear. You mix it at a 1-to-1 rate. It has a work time of about 12 minutes and a demold time of 2 to 4 hours. It is recommended with this particular material that you use a pressure pot to help eliminate bubbles. It does work very well when used as recommended. I am going to mix up some red, green, blue, yellow, 4 different colors, and we have some pearl dust added within. Generally you want to use gloves. More often than not anymore I don't. You got to make sure though you've got clothes you can afford to lose. You're working in an area that you can afford to mess up with. This resin is unforgiving when it comes to ruining clothes and other surfaces. This is a good time to recommend that I am not an expert or an instructor on any of the things you see here. This is just my video showing you how I do things. It is recommended that you use all your safety gear and operate all tools and equipment per the manufacturer's instructions. As soon as this is poured, we will take it to the pressure pot and we will pick up from there. Okay, so we're ready to put it into the pressure pot. I've got a little ice cream bucket in the bottom there to contain any spills, and then on top of that I've got a paper towel or two in the bottom of the ice cream bucket. A little easier to clean up. At this point I've got some of the extra epoxy I had left over from putting it in earlier before the pot. I'm going to go ahead and top it all off here. Want it as full as I can get it. On top of that, as it sets, it will suck up some moisture, some resin. So again, I want as much as in there as I can get it. So we've added what we can. We'll go ahead and put the lid on. The pot is rated for 70 pounds. Should be run at no more than that. I like to run a pressure of about 50 to 60 pounds. It works well for me. I've not had any problems with it. I do not know if it works better to have less pressure or more pressure. All I know is it does work for me. I don't have any problems with it. So we'll run the pressure up. We want to do that slowly. You add too much air in there at once, you run the risk of splattering your epoxy all over there. Makes for a messy cleanup. Once it's topped off, gets up to close to 60 pounds here, I go ahead and shut the valve, disconnect, and we'll let it set for 4 or 5 hours, and we'll have a look and see what it looks like. Looking good so far. All right, next step here before I can put on the faceplate is to trim up the top here so that I can put on a faceplate. So we're going to go with that now. Here I'm going to add a tenon to the bottom of the bowl. This allows me to turn the bowl around and remount it again to the lathe without adding any extra holes to the piece itself. The mounting plate that's used right now and mounted to the top of the bowl, as you saw earlier, uses screws to mount it. You don't want that at the bottom. You can't get rid of those screw holes. But the holes in the top of the bowl are not a problem. Once it's turned over, you're turning the inside out, removing the holes in the process. So that's not an issue. The most important thing, I think, when turning with the resin, actually with anything you turn, is to have a sharp tool. The sharper you have it, the better off you are. Aside from that, when turning the resin, you need to take your time. Especially until you've got the whole thing completely rounded. If you go too fast, if you try to take out too much at once, you tend to do a lot of chipping with the resin. Some of that can be fairly deep. And of course, the deeper it is, the farther you have to go to chase it to remove those imperfections. So again, I think the key is simply to take your time, not take too much at once, and go slow with it. And you'll get there. It's a game of fractions. You don't do anything with the lathe too quickly. If you do, you'll meet with problems. Let's just leave it at that. We will turn the bowl over here shortly, and we'll maybe spend a little more time with the video on the inside of it. At the moment, though, we're going to leave it on the high speed and see if we can't shorten the video up a little bit. All right, so we've finished the basic shaping of the outside. The bottom of the bowl, where the tenon is finished at this point. Once you've turned it over, the ability to get to it without mounting it to another tool in order to turn it around and finish it, you can't. So you finish it now. Go ahead and get it all sanded up. I start off with some 150, or if I need a little bit more shaping and get out some extra tool marks, I'll go with the 100 to start with. Then I'll work my way down. As far as the bottom goes, I'll work my way down to 1200. So that'll be like 100, 220, 320, 600, 800, and then 1200.
Of course, from about 220 on down, I'll wet sand it. All right, well, I removed the faceplate we had mounted to the top of the bowl, reversed the bowl over and mounted it to the Novichok jaws for the lathe. That pretty versatile tool for mounting the different pieces of work you might have on the lathe. Now I'm working on getting the final dimensions of the bowl. I'm looking for about 5 1/8 inch across the top and 2 9/16 inches across, I guess that's height, bottom to top. And once I've got those dimensions, I'll go back and do the final shaping on the outside. And then we'll start removing the center. Now, instead of just going with your basic tools on the centerpiece, I will be taking anyway, a couple of Forstner bits, starting with a 1-inch Forstner bit and then moving on to a 2-inch Forstner bit. This is just a little quicker way of removing the bulk of the material, and it'll make things a good bit simpler. well, here we've got the 1-inch Forstner bit, and we'll drive these to about a depth of 2 inches, which is about a 1/4 inch shy of the depth I'm looking for. The final depth, I will use my gouges to achieve that depth. I've gone ahead and mounted the 2-inch Forstner bit now, so we'll go ahead and drive it down again to about 2 inches, and from here we'll end up starting with the lathe tools. All right, well, it's time we get down to the finishing here. I'm going to clean it up a little bit with the tool, but we're going to go back to the sanding. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the sanding. It's obviously not one of the more thrilling parts of the video. But I start with the 150, go 220. I'll start at the wet sanding at 220, go to 320, 600, 800, 1200. And then I'll start with the micro grits. The micro grits have 9 different grits, I guess you'd have to call it. They'll start at 1500 and work their way to 12,000. Again, I say I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. It's obviously not what you call a big thrill. It's a lot of work. The truth is the sanding is probably the most important part of it. If it's not done right, at the end of your project, you'll see all the marks you left behind. And I know, at least personally, I don't like to see any of that. I feel it's almost a failure to go back after you finish and start seeing marks you should have had sanded out. But if you do it right, thoroughly, it makes all the difference in the project. So we'll see it here in a little bit.
Means I'm through with that one. Okay, here's the one I've been looking for since I started this project. The very last sanding pad.
Okay, the sanding is done. That's I don't know, that's the part I hate the least, or most, I guess it is, out of the job. I still think it's probably the most important part, but it's over. So now we're going to put on a coat of wax. As you can see there, it looks like it's Minwax Paste Finishing Wax, and it actually does a pretty darn good job. And I think one coat's all I'm going to put on. We'll put it on thin, let it dry for 5-10 minutes, and then we're going to buff it off. When buffing, you'll know you're done when there's no more residue coming off on your rag. Your rag comes up clean after you buffed it, you're done with the buffing. And at that point, we'll take it to the actual buffing pad, shine it up, and have a good look. If you're interested, here in about a week or so, I'm going to start my business officially. It's going to be called Woods Works. At that point, all of these things will be on the website, ready for your perusal. This is the sixth one I've made, and all of them have turned out as nice as this one. I really like the way the antler works with the resin. All right, we're going to take it outside here, get a little better look at it in the light. Well, there it is. Elk Antlers and Resin Bowl. Hope you like it.